And the family of a 16-year-old U.S. citizen is pleading for his release from an Israeli prison. Mohammed Ibrahim's family says in February, Israeli forces entered his relative's West Bank home in the middle of the night and arrested him for allegedly throwing rocks at Israeli settlers in their cars. Since then, his family says the Israeli military court has repeatedly extended his detention and that they can't visit or talk to him by phone. U.S. Embassy officials who have been allowed to visit report Mohammed is suffering from a full-body rash caused by a skin parasite and has lost about a quarter of his body weight. In a statement, Israel's Prime Minister's office says this is a criminal case, not a political one. Juvenile hearings are held in closed session by law to protect minors, and that Israel's position is straightforward. A serious, potentially deadly crime was committed, an indictment was filed, and the court is proceeding under due process. And Mohammed's uncle, Zeyad Kadur, is here with more on the family's push to bring him home. Zeyad, thank you for coming on. I want to get straight to your response to what the Prime Minister's office is saying here, that your nephew committed a potentially deadly crime and is being treated like any other juvenile accused of that.
Good morning. Yeah, we heard that. And, the lawyers and the interrogation that he went through tells a different story. There was a statement released by DCI Palestine that said Mohammed was beaten into a confession for something he didn't do, and ultimately confessed out of fear for, to not receive another beating.
I read reports that he confessed or admitted to throwing rocks, but that he didn't actually throw the rock at anything and wasn't trying to hit anyone or anything. Do you know what he actually confessed to?
He confessed to being there with a couple other kids, and he said that he didn't hit anything and he didn't do anything. During his second interrogation, the story changed, and the lawyers found out that ultimately he was beaten into a confession.
Now his trial keeps being delayed, which means his detention keeps being extended. You've went to his last hearing, I believe, but you say the hearings there are not like in America. So what do you expect when he's due in court next month?
We expect him to be in court around December 15th. His father attended the last couple of courts that were delayed. They haven't seen him for 9 months. There hasn't been any communication. 2 days ago, it was 9 months that the father and mother haven't heard his voice. He hasn't heard theirs. We're not even allowed to write a letter. But that just this past Thursday, U.S. Embassy staff member visited Mohammed in the prison. And as soon as he walked out, he picked up the phone and contacted the family and said, I have to be honest with you guys, your son doesn't look good. Looks like he lost more weight. He's got dark circles around his eyes. And mentally, he seemed kind of disconnected from everything. And he was so concerned that he called the family first. Then he filed a report to the State Department, and he uploaded it. But he also contacted the Prime Minister's office in Israel. He contacted IPS, the Israeli Prison Services, and then he escalated it more and contacted the Minister of Foreign Affairs. So, this staff member was really worried and concerned about Mohammed. And after 9 months, we thought that he was, being taken care of better. Just looks like it's just as bad as, since February, since he's been there.
I know the embassy also told the family not only that Mohammed's health is deteriorating, as you say, but that Israel is subjecting him to inhumane and violent treatment. What else do you know about that and his condition related to that? So
since February 16th to today, most of the reports that we got was, the starvation, his low BMI, between a quarter to a third of his weight loss. He contracted scabies. It was just on his leg. They didn't address it immediately. It ended up spreading to his entire body. Just a couple weeks ago, at one of his court hearings, it was his first time on a television seeing what he believed was his father through the screen. He was in a different room. He just tried to wave or say hi to his dad. And the military guards came and smacked his arm. And they got in his face and said something to him. And the lawyer asked, what did they say? And he said that they smacked my arm. They told me to shut up. That was done in front of the lawyer, the prosecutor, and the judge. So you can just imagine what happens when the cameras are off. And I guess every day we see reports of what's happening to prisoners right now in the West Bank and in Palestine in general. But, this is more about a 16-year-old kid from Florida who hasn't seen his mom or dad for 9 months, hasn't had any communication for 9 months. And we're asking our State Department, we're asking the White House, this administration, to get involved and do something just like they did for other Americans who weren't children. This is about a child. We're not talking about borders. We're not talking about religion or politics. We're just talking about, being human and taking care of, this young boy.
27 Democratic U.S. lawmakers wrote a letter to Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Israeli Ambassador Mike Huckabee last month expressing grave concern and calling for Mohammed's swift release. Have any of those lawmakers reached out to your family?
The lawmakers who signed the letter, yes, they're in constant contact with us.
And in a statement to ABC News, the State Department says whenever a U.S. citizen is detained abroad, the department works to provide all appropriate consular assistance, and they add that the ambassador and Embassy Jerusalem staff have been deeply involved in working on this case and continue to do so. Do you think the U.S. government is pushing hard enough for your nephew's release?
No, we don't just think, we know that. Eden Alexander, a Israeli-American who flew to Israel and fought in the Gaza war, was taken hostage. The White House and the administration secured his release with what they describe as a terrorist organization. They worked directly with Hamas in Gaza and got him out through the Egyptian border without dealing with the Israeli government. And in the statement from Gaza, they said that they did it as a favor or a show of good faith to the new administration. If what you claim is a terrorist organization did that in good faith, as a family, what should we expect from your greatest ally in the Middle East, the only democracy in the Middle East that you have great relationships with? Just a couple of days ago, Kushner was there, Witkoff was there, Huckabee is there, Marco Rubio already made 2 or 3 trips. So if a terrorist organization released an American as a show of good faith, who was there as a soldier, something he signed up for, what about this 15-year-old who was taken from his bedroom blindfolded, zip-tied at gunpoint by 35 masked men or 30 masked soldiers? We would expect a lot more from the United States' greatest ally in the Middle East.
Zeyad, what's next in the fight for your family and anyone else trying to help you bring Mohammed home?
As you mentioned, the congressmen and the senators who signed the letter, they've been following up with us, trying, whatever they can. The letter, in a way, actually kind of expired. The time for response ended a few days ago. I don't know, after nine months, I don't know if we, as a family, we're advocating. We ask God first to help him and give his family patience. But we're asking both governments, the Israelis and the Americans, to just do their job. To treat it as what it is. He doesn't need to be there. It's been 9 months. But, our family already took another blow in mid-July. Mohammed's first cousin, Saifullah Musalat from Tampa, was beaten to death in mid-July in the West Bank by settlers. And they blocked an ambulance from giving him help. The IDF blocked the ambulance for over 2.5 hours. The young man was, murdered. So, you have these 2 sisters, Muhammad's mother and Saif's mother. And, we already buried one. And, after seeing, the concerns about his health and what he's been going through, and 9 months later, we shouldn't have to be thinking about burying another. We think a simple phone call from the president can get Mohammed home. At the same time, we're not blind to the fact what could happen every day in the West Bank to children and what we've been hearing about that's been happening in these prisons. These rape allegations, the sexual abuse, the starvation, the scabies, the mental effect it has on him. And like I said, our faith is in God first. From our politicians, we're not asking you to be a Democrat or Republican. We're asking you to put your place as a father, as a mother, as a human, and to ask for his release.
All right.
A simple ask.
Zeyad Kadur, we appreciate you coming on and sharing your story with us. I'm sorry your family is going through this. Thank you again for taking the time.
Thank you, Diane.